All right, we are here. Montgomery, Alabama. My name is Max Parthas, and I'm here with
Savannah Eldridge.
We represent the Abolish Slavery National Network, and we are here on the anniversary of the 155th anniversary of the ratification of the 13th Amendment, right here in Montgomery, Alabama, at Montgomery Plaza. And surrounded by history with the slave markets and everything else going on around us. We'd like to give you a shout out to our sponsors.
We're going to give a shout out to our sponsors, Abolish Slavery National Network, Texas Advocates for Justice, the Paul Huffey Abolitionist Center, and Be Break for Justice. Also the Young and the Politics. So lots of great sponsors helping put on this event tonight to make sure that we are able to come out and educate the Alabama community about the very important ratification of the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
And we know that although the ratification happened 155 years ago for the 13th Amendment, that it didn't actually abolish slavery. What it did was legalize slavery. It was the first time that slavery was put into the U.S. Constitution, and because of that exception clause, there began things like convict leasing. And from convict leasing, we've seen mass incarceration and many other aspects of modern legalized slavery, which is codified through the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. We're going to come back and talk to you in a few minutes, but before that, we want to get this whole scene set with a wonderful, wonderful poet, Travel Rain, from Sumter, South Carolina, also representative of the Paul Huffey Abolitionist Center, but most of all, she is my loving wife. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start this out with the poem. We're going to Travel Rain.
Peace, everyone. The city is full of mourning mothers, just as in ancient days, wailing with lungs too dry to draw breath. Empty womb misfits, children torn from their bodies and cast aside like disregarded refuse. Misused, unloved, and forgotten. The city is full of mourning mothers. They wander around lost in the days, unfazed by the life that continues to move on without them. They hear the long-gone laughter and reach for the outstretched hands that no longer dwell in the land of the living. They shuffle along haunted by the memories of their lost loved ones, gone too soon. Empty shelves of their former selves, they've been placed on shelves in the basements of lost remembrances and labeled damaged goods. Beaten down by the hood and the slave catchers who run it. Told we may never find out who done it. But we all know who pulled the trigger, who fired the gun, who sold them the drugs, who shouted, "Run, nigga, run!" Who shot them in the backs of squad cars and in dark alleys as they were lying face down, hands cuffed behind their backs. Come on, people. We've all been appraised of so-called facts. We all know who shot them dead. It was the same men we hired to protect and serve. They were killed by the Brotherhood. Men wearing white hoods, masked by silver badges, marked for death simply because of the color of their skin. And because of those badges, we'll get screwed once again. And justice will not be served. The city is full of mourning mothers. They know these mean streets will kill heartbeats and fill up graveyards and prison buildings. See, this melanin life right here is hard and unyielding. Death stalks your child and mine from the moment they draw breath, so ain't no rest for the weary and downtrodden. The city's mothers are constantly on the run, running from street corner to courthouse, from courthouse to prison building, from prison building to funeral home, and don't even mention hope, because all of our hope is gone. Our hope drained out into the gutter, along with the lifeblood of our husbands and sons, while most people stood by and became silent witness to murder most high. And you wonder why we howl out in misery and abject rage? The city is full of mourning mothers, each and every one of them the same. Empty-armed, broken-hearted silhouettes of their former selves. Hands entreating, hands needing empty wounds, needing to hold on to their lost loved ones who are gone but not forgotten. Oh yes, the city is full of mourning mothers. Mothers hunted forever by the fertile sound of freedom's non-existent women. Peace.
All right, you can find it at MaximumImpactPoetry.com. Just a little backstory behind that poem. A few years ago, we were talking with at least 6 different women who had lost their children to police violence. And it was just so overwhelming. And I talked to my wife, I said, you know, we need to put this in some way into poetry. And I can't possibly do it, but you as a mother can. And that was the result of it. The city is full of mourning mothers. So one more time, Tropic Rain. We want to thank all our listeners online, our viewers online, who are watching via the Paul Company Abolitionist Center. We really appreciate you. We are going to bring in our next spoken word artist, who is a living legend himself. I believe he just won a Lifetime Achievement Award, wasn't it? What was it, brother? It was close enough, right? It was from the people. Ladies and gentlemen, from Mobile, Alabama, Hubby Bear.
Man, I feel the ancestors in the building, man.
Yes.
You know, this is hollow ground for us. You know, I got a piece, man, but you know, I just want to say a few words before I get started. You know, like what tribal poem spoke to, you know, so we really can't address, you know, slavery and 13th Amendment without addressing how they feel their conscience, and it's with their aggressive police attacks. And how through the centuries they've basically, you know, criminalized being black. And a little poem to kind of speak to some of, you know, the things that we go to, man. And it speaks truth to power. It's simply entitled, Truth Is. I don't celebrate the 4th of July, so I'm labeling some unpatriotic term. I'll be there. The truth is, we were still picking their cotton when they was out popping the fireworks. While they sitting at Julep and pick a nigga, we were swinging from that tree. Neck, snap, genitals mutilated for the whole world to see. That type of savagery is about fear and intimidation. It still is to this day. They just use the police and justice system to keep black folks afraid, docile, and at bay. That's why I have the courage of my conviction to say keep your police, your anthem, and your flag. If anybody don't like it, well, you can kiss me and Sarah Barber's ass. The truth is, for 3 decades, we've been showing them the video proof. It's 2020, why are we still trying to validate our truth? White people is racing, screaming, well, it's just all in your niggas' heads. While they reap our praise on these pigs that run through our hood like they Judge Dredd. So we live this every day, and they claim it's all in our mind. None of the heavy-handed tactics that's being used on our crime. What about black-on-black crime? You know, that's the first thing they always did. The truth is, white folks been raped, pillaged, and pillaging for millennia on a global scale. Barely out of the Jim Crow, colonizer, and apartheid game. How the kings and queens of savagery don't try to sell my people's name. They lied denied for centuries to hide their own people's shame. And the truth is, you waited till the last minute if you did the right thing. White history, full of white lies, whitewashed black pain. They feel no shame in the game because they don't even acknowledge the stain. Our blood has been bleached out to the point where even sympathy's in vain. So I'm separating, showing their true colors with this lyrical game. Now I know some of what I may be saying may be going against the grain. But we get rid of the same evil and vicious cycle without anybody the same. We've been laid out to dry like laundry, and their ignorance is framed. So if black folk able as a race, we're gonna need to stay the hell away from pain. Because you killer cops coming out of the woodworks, white folk act like it's mystery. Like we're gonna wait another 400 years for them to get on the right side of history. Because I'm tired of dealing with the hard bigotry that lowered expectations. They don't want no race relations without race, so how are we gonna have race relations? We want to get along with white folks You gotta follow 6 simple rules. You gotta their churches, their neighborhoods, their job, and their school. As long as you don't act too niggerish, spending your money in their business in school. Of course, you can run, jump, serve, and entertain them because they love to see us acting fool. They never want to see us get ahead of the people. It's one thing they can't trust. They feel like if the shoe was ever on the other foot, retaliation would be a must. They don't comprehend, we don't think like that, so they plot to keep us stuck. Time for us to come together as a people and build our own kingdom up. See, it's an old problem. There's no need a new solution. Because it's people that just hold these conflict resolutions. No matter how humble you are, no matter what you do or say, there's some race soldiers out there waiting to make sure you have a bad day. Whether you're a third or a college student, they're going to put you in your place. You say do something they don't like, they're going to shoot you in your face. The smart art nigga going to get it worse, so they won't take you down and pay. This officer ain't friendly, and he love to see niggas pay. See the strength within you. That's why they feed you to God. That's why they need the numbers and the weapons so they can even up their odds. Disrespect you, antagonize you, but they hope you get you buck. So they can put you in the cuff and show up mess your ass up. They might lie and just say, we gave you some provocation. Shoot you down like a dog, and you go on a paid vacation. See, it's about voter suppression, population control, and that's what they're not really telling. It's to them, we just one less dead nigga. And one more live fella.
You got a website?
Now we put in Huggy Bear the Poet. Gotta get to all my social media, IG, Twitter, Facebook. Spelled Doug Bonically DA. So Huggy Bear with a Y, 2 G's with a Y, Huggy Bear, DA, Poet.
Huggy Bear, two G's with a Y.
2 G's with a Y.
Check about Huggy Bear the Poet. All right. I want to tell you about some history that just recently happened. Come on over here and join me, Savannah. I think it's wonderful news. You know, the Abolish Slavery National Network has been working to remove the exception clause from state constitutions all across America, and we have been very successful with that. We're also inserting anti-slavery language into state constitutions like Texas and New Jersey, which has no language whatsoever. But in order to protect ourselves from this system of slavery, we are putting this language into those state constitutions. I want to tell you about what happened in the conversation about the amendment here in Alabama. But before I do that, I want to give Sister Savannah a chance to tell you about what they're doing in Texas right now. She's here all the way from Texas to participate in this event commemorating the anniversary of the 13th Amendment's ratification, and she'll tell you what they're doing in Texas. Savannah?
I'm one of the co-founders of the Coalition to Abolish Slavery in Texas. We're a fairly new coalition and happy to have the support of the Abolish Slavery National Network. So in Texas, our main priority right now is educating the community. There's a huge need to be sure that in order to build these coalitions and these teams of people helping us move forward, that we make sure that everybody is educated about what it is that we're trying to do and what the goals are of these coalitions on the state and the national level. So in Texas, we have three co-founders, two co-founders, aside from myself, we have David Johnson and Coretta Brown, and us three form the Coalition to Abolish Slavery in Texas. And with the assistance of Representative Alma Allen, a bill has been drafted and is ready for filing. So we are waiting for a bill number so that we can move forward with further education of the community and building up our coalition so that we can abolish slavery without exceptions in the state of Texas.
That's wonderful, man. I know it sounds crazy. We're in 2020 talking about abolishing slavery from the Constitution. But you know, we went 155 years without realizing it was even there. We didn't know that, but the powers that be did know that. And for those that are unaware, immediately after the emancipation, they began convict leasing. Texas began in 1867. Texas is the home of Juneteenth. You remember, they were the last ones to be told when, they were the last ones to be told that the slaves had been freed. And Just months after the news reached them in Galveston, Texas, they began their convict leasing program right there in Texas. And just a couple of years ago, there was a mass grave found in Texas from people who had been subject, black men and women who had been subject to convict leasing and then buried in mass graves. In Sugar Land, Texas, exactly. You know a little bit about that. You want to say anything about that?
The uncovering of graves in Sugar Land, Texas was the work of the late Reginald Moore, who expired this year. And Reginald Moore, who was not a historian, led efforts to uncover these mass graves in Sugar Land, Texas, for convicts who were living in the Bullhead prison camp. And so, as a result of his work, there's been some great memorialization planned for the Sugar Land 95 convicts. However, we know that talking about authenticity is not enough. We have to do what we have to do. We have to erase what led to this convict leasing process. Erasing slavery is a priority, right? A lot of people did not know that slavery still exists in the prison system, and it wasn't until I started this work that I realized how many people were ignorant about the practices that are going on in the prison systems across the nation. So yes, you can look up extension officers that have a huge report about it, going down to the names and descendants of these people. The Convict Leasing and Labor Project website, so please go and check that out.
That's awesome history, man. For those that don't know, America has the largest prison population in the history of humanity on planet Earth. We have 2.2 million prisoners in our prison systems, and nearly 12 million people every year go through our jails. If you count the people who are on probation, parole, supervision, going through court systems, detention, youth detention, immigration, it's about 24 million people a year who are subject to this system here in the United States. No other country comes close to what we're doing. And you know, in Alabama, just this past election period, there was Amendment 4. Amendment 4 was a vote on the ballot to allow the organizers to remove racist language from the Alabama state constitution. We were watching that as the Abolish Slavery National Network very closely because we had an idea. And
go ahead. Get on that side.
I don't understand. Can you say speak up?
Go ahead.
Okay. So as the Abolish Slavery National Network, we were paying attention to Amendment 4 because we had an idea. And when it passed, the first thing we did was reach out to the organizers from the Alabama Citizens for Constitutional Reform. And we talked with Marva and Nancy. And we said, Marva and Nancy, we understand that you guys have an opportunity now to remove this racist language that is in the Alabama State Constitution, which is one of the longest constitutions in the world today. And she said, yes, we do, Max. She said, but we heard about you guys, and we don't have any slavery in our Constitution. There's nothing in our Constitution that says slavery is allowed. And I said, well, Nancy, if that was in your Constitution, would you be willing to remove it? She said, yes. And then we showed her exactly where it is in Article 1, Section 32 of the Alabama State Constitution, which basically reads what the U.S. Constitution. So they were very excited to hear that and immediately got on board. They're like, Max, yes, if it's there, we're going to take it out. So we explained to them exactly how that would look, and they were very satisfied with it. And they said, all we have to do now is vote on it. So now, in 2022, you get the chance to vote to end slavery in Alabama for the very first time in this state's history. Isn't that amazing? Now, we're not working alone, you know, we have this national organization. We also have many coalitions working with us, but we also are working with those who are inside of the prison systems here in Alabama. We're working with those who are inside of the prison systems here in Alabama. And one of those groups is the Free Alabama Movement. some of you may have heard of the Free Alabama movement, and they're watching right now. So shout out to Benue, Kinetic, Kent, all the brothers and sisters in Tutwiler, Holman, and all over. They're organizing within the prisons, and they brought a lot of attention to this issue, not just nationally, but internationally. And they've also prepared a recorded statement, which I plan to play for you, so that you can hear in their own words exactly what it is they're looking for and how they feel about this. So give me a second here, and I'm going to play this recorded message from Brother Benu Hannibal Rasa, also known as Melvin. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here you go.
December 6, 2020, and we are just 8 days away from December 14, 2020, which marks the 201-year anniversary of the founding of the state of Alabama. Alabama has been a part of the Union of the United States, or the Confederacy, for over 200 years now. And every day of its existence, the state of Alabama has been a slave-holding state. Whether it was Africans who were transported to this country in the transatlantic slave trade, by whatever route we arrived here, whether it's through South America, Central America, or directly to the shores of America, even the port in Mobile, where the last slave ship was brought into this state. The state of Alabama has always had some form of law on the books making slavery legal. As we all know, through the course of history, the United States of America had reached a point where they decided that they were going to outlaw the practice of slavery. This culminated in the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, and immediately following Abraham Lincoln's election, the state of Alabama, along with several other southern states, seceded from the Union. Alabama and several other southern states seceded from the Union because of their fear that President Lincoln would abolish the practice of slavery throughout the United States. Alabama, which was known basically from its inception as the Cotton State, and after seceding and throughout the Civil War became known as the Heart of Dixie. So the history of the embrace of the institution of slavery and everything that represents and stands for has always been a stain, and will forever be a stain on this land. In 1861, the state of Alabama convened a constitutional convention in Montgomery, Alabama, and they drafted a document called the Secession Constitution. And the Secession Constitution specifically stated that no one, the state legislators, the United States government, no one would be allowed to end the practice of slavery in the state of Alabama. Of course, we all know a civil war was fought over the institution of slavery, and after the Civil War ended, the state of Alabama was forced to pass what is known as the Reconstruction Constitution. The Reconstruction Constitution was passed in 1865. And in 1865, on September 30th, the Alabama Reconstruction Constitution included for the first time an article in the Constitution addressing the institution of slavery as we know it today. That was Article 1, Section 34. And the state of Alabama had to pass this Reconstruction Constitution in order to rejoin the Union. Subsequently, the state of Alabama would ratify the 13th Amendment. They ratified the 13th Amendment on December the 2nd, 1865. And just a few days later, the final two states ratified, giving the United States enough states to passed the 13th Amendment to ratify it as the law of the land. The 13th Amendment reads, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime, shall exist in the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. As you all can see, and as all of the speakers today are discussing, as people around the world are discussing, people around the United States, particularly the United States Congress, with the recent announcement from the senator from Oregon stating that they are demanding that this exception clause be removed from the United States Constitution. The institution of slavery is still today the law of the land. I talked about the Alabama Constitution of 1901, Article 1, Section 32, and this particular law states that no form of slavery shall exist in this state, and there shall not be any involuntary servitude otherwise than for the punishment of crime of which the party shall have been duly convicted. And my position as being a freedom fighter, an abolitionist, and the founder of the Free Alabama movement, a person being incarcerated in the state of Alabama, these amendments have a real application in my life. I'm speaking from personal experience, from what this law means to me. And these laws particularly state that the institution of slavery and voluntary servitude are allowed in the prisons where a person should have been duly convicted. And I just want to point out a few things about the state of Alabama and the institution of slavery and the prison system. Alabama, the last slave ship to arrive in this country arrived in the state of Alabama. After the institution of slavery, private ownership of slavery was abolished, and the institution of slavery through the 13th Amendment and Article 1, Section 32, the current article. Alabama has went through several different articles in their different constitutions. The current Constitution of 1901 is Article 1, Section 32, but these laws in Alabama that have authorized the institution of slavery in the prison system evolved from, like I said, private ownership to government ownership, which was managed through the Department of Corrections. One of the evolutions or name changes or facial changes of one of the first changes was the convict leasing system. And just as Alabama was the last state to receive a slave ship in this country, Alabama was also the last state in this country to stop convict leasing. So Alabama's loyalty, commitment to slavery is unending. And the current form is the form that Free Alabama movement is challenging today. And the law, you have the law, and you have the institution that the law created, and then you have the practice. And so the emphasis that I want to make in my speech is that the prisons are the place where they send people for punishment for crime. And the courthouses are the places where people are so-called duly convicted. And so there is an unquestionable connection between the criminal justice system and the prison system and the practice of slavery. The actual practice of slavery is directly connected to the criminal justice system. And so we have to ask ourselves, how can you get justice in a place that oversees the practice of slavery? How is it possible for you to get justice in a place that oversees the institution of slavery? It's an oxymoron of the highest proportion to the highest degree. And then when you get into the prison system, if the prison system is designed to carry out the practice of slavery, then what do you expect? You should expect exactly what we're seeing in the news today about the Alabama prison system. Alabama prison system is the most notorious and well-known prison system in the country today. It is on the news, it is in the print, it's on the press, it's talked about on radio. People are dying daily, not only in Alabama, but around the country. And it is because of what these institutions represent. And so when we talk about repealing and replacing the 13th Amendment, or we talk about Amendment 4 and removing racist language from the Alabama Constitution, or we talk about how we're going to address criminal justice reform or prison reform, please remember that we're talking about the institution of slavery. And when we're talking about that, that's the reason why the United States Department of Justice can come into Tutwiler and find over 20 years of sexual abuse, and no one's held accountable. Because this is what slavery allowed. This is the reason why you can see a class action lawsuit in the Alabama prison system be found guilty of violating the human rights, the constitutional rights of people under their control, and no one's held accountable. This is the reason why the United States Department of Justice can issue a report stating that the prison system is violent, it has a culture of violence, it is being perpetuated by the administrators and the commissioner's office, and again, no one is being held accountable. This is the reason why. It is because we're talking about slavery. We're not talking about crime, we're not talking about crime and punishment, we're not talking about criminal justice or the criminal justice reform. We're talking about slavery. And many people in Alabama don't want to use this term. There are many nonprofits, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the ACLU, and all of these people who are filing all of these lawsuits into these courts. These people are part of the fabric of white supremacy in America. These institutions were founded, and these are not the institutions that challenge slavery. These people have never been anti-slavery people. It has been forbidden and socially acceptable for them to not talk about it, to stay away from it, and you all know what I'm talking about, how these things work. But it's very important for people to know that when you have a state like Alabama, the leaders of the state are engaged in private negotiations with prison profiteers, prison slavery profiteers, people who profit off of the ownership of other human beings, the core civics, the GO groups, the prison transition groups. These are people who understand that their forefathers and foremothers fought to preserve the institution of slavery under the criminal justice system, managed through the prison system, with the practice of exploitation of free labor, exploitation of resources of people under their charge. And these people are operating pursuant to the law. Their actions are not just, but they are legal. And so it is important for us to remove whatever leg that they have to stand on in carrying out what it is that they're trying to carry out. We have to repeal these laws. These slave laws have to be removed from the books and cast into history. We can no longer live in a society where government is allowed to have the authority to own other people and to use their laws and systems to enslave other people. And we're calling all these governments, all of these officials, and especially here in the state of Alabama, we're calling on Governor Kay Ivey, Commissioner Jefferson Dunn, all of the people leading the charge to get these private prisons built. We're calling on all of you to put your guns down, to break away from this addiction, this sickness, this evil that you have of desire to own black flesh, desire to own and control people and to use people to make profit. We're calling on you to repent and cast away this evil and to humanize yourself, to take a look in the mirror, to denounce and reject this institution and reject these practices as inhumane, as uncivilized, as barbaric, and no longer having a place in society. You can't continue to live in this lie. You can't continue to live this life. You cannot expect for people to no longer be awake to what you're doing and continue to accept it. It's not possible. We're not going to have it. We're not going to allow it. You know, the time is now. The end is now. And it's time to create a new world, to create new people, to create a new hope, to create a new future, and to move away from the stain on history. This is a stain on human history that we have to move away from. The time is now, Alabama. Abolish slavery, Alabama. Abolish slavery now.
Thank you very much. That was Benu Hanwawasa, who is incarcerated right now here in the state of Alabama. In a prison where just last week, for days, the prisoners had to light a fire in the main room in a can because there was no heat in the prison. They are subject to torture and unimaginable issues and violations of their human rights. As he mentioned, the Department of Justice has already come in and already investigated these prisons here in Alabama and found that there are rampant violations of their Eighth Amendment rights. So these are constitutional crises that we're dealing with. So once again, everybody, Hannibal Rasa. Next, I want to bring in my co-host today, Savannah Eldridge. Savannah?
Thank you, Max. In the interest of keeping with the topics, things that are rattling through the prison system, I just want to bring forth the subject of COVID-19. We are living in a new time and era, a time where jails and prisons were already riddled with infectious diseases, high rates of diseases like HIV, hepatitis B, and tuberculosis. And considering the disproportionate number of Black and brown people in jails and prisons across the nation, these threats are heightened now of COVID-19. In Alabama, as of December 2nd, 32 inmates, pardon my reference to inmates, people who are incarcerated have died as a result of COVID-19, and 2 staff members. That's as of December 2nd. Article after article, interview after interview, we constantly hear of prisons being referred to as coronavirus or COVID-19 hotbeds. So can you tell me the 3 most effective strategies for preventing COVID-19? I think if we look around right now, everybody's got a mask on. We're always talking about hand washing, but social distancing is one of the hugest factors in preventing COVID-19. So would anyone want to imagine what social distancing looks like in a prison that's overcrowded to over 160%? Alabama Department of Corrections is the most overcrowded prison in the nation. And as Brother Benu referred in his speech, we know this. It's been reported time and time again in the news. It's been reported time and time again in the newspaper. However, there's been no action to set the people free who need to go free. Earlier this year, the ACLU issued a report card regarding state response to COVID-19, and Alabama scored an F+. And so I'm from Texas. I can't really boast or brag because we got an F2. We didn't get an F+, so we actually did worse than Alabama in that sense. But these rates were based on the following things: the availability of PPE, or personal protective equipment, to staff and people who are incarcerated, staff efforts to reduce county jail and state prison populations, governor issued orders to halt jail admissions or release medically vulnerable people. And then they wanted to take a look at the availability of data to the public and how often that data was updated. And also, they wanted to make sure that units and prisons were reporting how many people were actually dying in the custody or in the prison system. So those are the things that the report card was based on. So, as I said, Alabama received an F+. Alabama was also holding fewer parole hearings and issuing fewer favorable judgments for parole under the leadership of Governor Kay Ivey. So that means during the pandemic, when the CDC and all of the expert entities are asking and requiring that we consider who is eligible for release, they still refuse to take a look at this information and data in their state. One thing is clear, Alabama prisons need more space. And when we asked for more space, we didn't think that the solution would be to build more prisons. The solution for more space is not to build more prisons. So Free Alabama Movement conducted a protest outside of the Alabama Board of Pardons and Paroles earlier this year, calling for several demands, which included the removal of Charlie Brown, who, as we know now, no longer serves on the Board of Pardons and Paroles as of November the 3rd. Amid the cries for testing and aggregation of information, has anybody ever wondered, with all of these COVID-positive tests, where the hell are they isolating people? Where the hell are they keeping people? We have thousands of positive results. How are we separating these people? How are we keeping people safe from transmission of COVID-19? The only way to reduce the spread of the virus in prison is to increase discharges and reduce jail admissions. That's the only way. We don't need more prisons in any state, but in a place like Alabama that's consistently highlighted in the news for the mismanagement of their correction system, that shouldn't even be a viable option. As Master Brother Lee said, in April 2019, the Department of Justice concluded that Alabama prisons were so horrific that they violated human rights and were cruel and unusual punishment. One commonality was that they were overcrowded and their staffing shortages. And in an attempt to allow the state to fix their own problem, the Department of Justice has delayed intervention. In her state of address this year, Governor Kay Ivey was reported saying this is an Alabama problem and it should be an Alabama solution. So considering the state's history, there's no wonder why just over a year after that report was published, little has changed. In fact, the Department of Justice in the report also highlighted a simultaneous epidemic, the drug epidemic. So in the wake of the coronavirus, we have drugs ravaging through the Alabama Department of Corrections. And although most are incarcerated for their drug use, many find it easier to find illicit drugs there than in the free world. So even in the community, we are experiencing disruption of social support systems for those who are battling drug addiction, making it easier for them to relapse. And the prison system is no different. The mandatory lockdowns and shutdowns have made it harder to get drugs into the city, into the community, in the country, so there's more use of synthetic drugs. Synthetic drugs like Plaza, synthetic drugs like K2 and Spice, and they're ravaging through the prison system. These drugs pose a greater risk of safety, especially Plaza, because it's highly addictive. It's a mix of methamphetamine and LSD. It causes euphoria, it causes hallucination, extreme delirium, and often people go into a psychotic state and they're very violent. It's very common in prisons because it's cheap. $5 a flocka creates the same effects of $80 worth of cocaine, and it's easy to conceal. So drug use, especially flocka, is a huge factor in transmission of COVID-19, just because people lose their inhibition, right? They're impulsive and they lose their ability to be cognitively. So how many have seen the videos on social media of people under the influence of flocka? They're in a demonic state, they're having seizure-like activities. We've all seen it. We've all seen it all over social media. People are dying. They're dying from lack of medical care. They're dying from COVID-19. They're dying from drug overdoses. People are dying in prison for preventable medical issues. Preventable medical issues. So we've all seen it. We can no longer ignore it. Much like the period of comic music in Alabama from 1875 to 1928, many of those enthralled in the Alabama Department of Corrections are perishing under the same factors like illness, being overworked, and overall unkept. And even today, people continue to be incarcerated in the U.S. to keep the wheels of the prison industrial complex turning and turning. If a person is forced to work under the ownership of any entity, it is slavery. It is not mass incarceration. It is slavery. So I ask you again, if a person is forced to work under the entity of any ownership, what is it?
Slavery.
It's slavery. We need to call it what it is. It's slavery. It was then and it still is today. It's illegal today. No movement has ever been successful without incorporating those who are closest to the issue. So I thank Benin and Borasa for contributing to this conversation today. Those contributions are very valuable, and we really need to take a listen and use those words in our efforts to abolish slavery and transform the criminal justice system. So this is a call to outside organizations as we're asking for improvement of conditions, and if our goal is to reform or transform the criminal justice system, we have a responsibility, as written in the book that's most cited in the opposition of reform efforts, which is the Bible, not the law, right? The Bible is cited the most in the opposition of our criminal justice reform efforts. We have to remember the prisons as if they were chained with us. Remember the prisons as if we were chained with them. And that's Hebrews 13 and 3. We should not have any reservations or any exceptions to slavery, because we haven't figured out as a nation how to exist without it. Slavery is a crime against humanity, as Max Carter says, and he is absolutely right. This movement is not about being Democratic or Republican. It's not about red and blue. It's about right and wrong, and slavery is wrong.
Savannah Eldridge. You know, people might say, well, Max, come on, are you serious? People don't do that. They're not trying to incarcerate people for money. These are bad people. They're criminal. They must have did something wrong, right? Otherwise, why would they be in prison? And that's a commonly held misconception. So what I want to do is share a little audio with you. What I have is a conversation that I heard on a local station here in Alabama about 2 years ago. It was an interview with Commissioner Troy Stubbs from Alabama District 3, and also with Senator Clyde Chambliss, whose office is right here in Montgomery. And they talked about building these new prisons here in Alabama, and they explained exactly why they want to build these prisons and what the results they would hope to achieve by building these prisons will be. I don't want to say too much about it. I'd rather let you hear it in their own words. But I do want to say this much. It's raining a little bit here in Alabama, and we've got people standing outside, and we are so appreciative that you guys are doing that with us. We're going to try to finish this up before the rain. So let me not talk too much further, and go ahead and play this audio clip for you, so you can hear in your own ears and in their own words exactly what they are trying to achieve.
Elmore County is ground zero of any prison reform efforts in the state. The county is home to 5 facilities operated by the Alabama Department of Corrections, which create a total of 595 jobs. Elmore has the most correctional facilities of any county in the state. The facilities here make up about 17% of the DOC's total employment. Chairman, give me an idea of what the Elmore County Commission is doing to preserve the Department of Corrections presence in Elmore County.
Yeah, we're very focused on doing what's best for Elmore County and the citizens here. We have a lot of exposure to the corrections business here in Elmore County. We've got several prisons, lots of employees, and so we want to make sure that we're doing what's best for the citizens here and protecting our economic interest and the jobs here.
It's not just Elmore County that benefits from these jobs in the Department of Corrections facilities.
That's right. We have over a $30 million payroll and over 700 jobs here. And many of those employees do come from surrounding counties, Autauga County, Tallapoosa, Coosa County, and Montgomery County. And so we recognize that this is a regional event that we need to monitor and get the pulse of throughout the legislative process.
Senator, you were key in getting the current prison reform bill out of the Senate into the House. Give us an idea of why you think the bill is going to work. What are the strengths?
Well, there's a couple of key components. One is we did away with the design build aspect and went back to the current design bid aspect that we use in state government now. So that was a big win to try to get that out. But the biggest issue is, especially with Elmore County, in making sure that we keep those jobs there and have that opportunity. The way the bill's structured now, Elmore County has a say in what's going to happen. The original bills, they really had no say. It was just going to happen. Now we have some ability to affect the process. So that's a big win in the bill.
Clyde, Elmore County is in your district. How important is it to keep all the prisons in Elmore County?
Well, it's very important, but more important than that is the wardens who are there in those prisons, working in those prisons. Those wardens are the ones who are protecting us as a society from those who would seek to do us harm. I represent those wardens. So getting them and the prisons into a more secure, a more stable environment is very, very important, because those wardens deserve to go home to their families every night.
Now, what about the economic development for Elmore County? How important is that for the continued economy?
It is important, and if one of these prisons are built there, it actually would be an increase probably from around 400 jobs to 700 jobs. So it could be a significant economic positive impact if a new prison's built there.
That was your elected officials talking about why they want to build these prisons here. It wasn't about crime or punishment. You never heard them mention anything about crime or punishment. They were talking about economic development programs, increasing jobs, generating revenue for this county, for the counties nearby, in a place where the prisons are nearly 200% occupancy already. So basically they were saying, we don't need criminals, we'll create criminals. What we need is prisons. If we create the prisons, we can fill them up with all the people that we need to fill them up with. So that's the goal and the agenda behind $1 billion effort to build new prisons in Alabama. And you heard it from your own elected officials right there. We want to try to wrap this up as soon as possible because it is bad weather. So I would like to bring up our poets one more time. I'm going to bring up Child Ray once more, so she can add the spirits of the ancestors to what we're doing here. And I know that's not in Alabama today, here in Alabama, for bringing you this message. So ladies and gentlemen, one more time, Child Ray.
We heard whispered words of warning echoing on the wind, and still we charge full speed ahead. Not looking back, never looking back, so we didn't see the demons that were chasing us. See, people, history is trying to erase us, trying to eradicate our genetic code from the book of life. But the melanin non-skin can't be wiped away with an eraser. The breath of life can't be redacted from our lungs. So you can't go back to Genesis and take back Adam's rib in existence. She did. And she gave birth to nations, a black woman. So what can I say? Black Adam. And it can't be wiped off. It won't be wiped out. No matter how hard you try. No matter how deeply it may gall your pride, we won't be silenced by your genocides. By your quiet attempts to step aside. We won't be bound by your pitiful endeavors to enslave us, degrade us, or betray us as less than human, because we're here. And here is where we'll remain. See, people, we stand tall despite the chains. And the trees transplanted onto our backs will not break, no matter how many lashes they give. We'll implant our feet firmly into the soil, brace our backs to the wind, lift our fists to the sky, and firmly set our chins and shout, we stand. And the lineages that creep up from the cracks of our ancestral existence are persistent and unyielding. We remain. From the moment Adam and Eve stepped forth from that garden of Eden, our survival skills were honed and mastered, and we overcame. We overcome. Following the footsteps and carrying out the torches of Nat, the battle cries of Malcolm, the prayers of Martin, and the bloody trails left by warriors with names that are too numerous to count. Blackout. And it's not a sin. It's not a curse. People, it's not even a punishment. Black is a gift of royalty, a mastery, a blessing. Black is what happened when God spoke and the world came into existence. See this right here? This right here is our living testimony. Because we are here. We stand strong. We remain. And Black happens.
Next up on mic is Brother Hubby Bear, from Montgomery, Alabama. Brother, about to drop that spoken word. All right.
I'm going to do this piece, man. Years ago, this was known as my signature piece. I did this thing for the thing. This is a Black crisis. We talk about things Black people have been through, what we're going through right now, what we're going to do. They claim everyone was treated equal in America. It's only if you were Protestant, Anglo-Saxon, and white. You see, if America was such a land of equality, it would have took long to make this right. Over 400 years, they try to hold our people back. Some of them use the Bible for validation. We cried and died, or they just stole and lied, simply because of our deportation. When the biggest lies came, at the end of the Civil War, we were promised 40 acres and a mule. But all we got is Democratic Party donkey shit, a whole bunch of projects in there. You see, after slavery, they need to keep us in check. But they lied and played us like we were fools. It was their fear of miscegenation that was the ultimate motivation, so they oppressed us and pretended it was cool. They said, you niggas can live a long and healthy life. If you obey us and you follow our rules. Recreation, they'll be playing the basketball court, so don't let us get your black asses in our pools. Don't leave you gonna be nice and give you a little education, but you can't come to our school. And of course you know about messing with our white people. Just the punishment for that was the pool. We told about black men were taken out to the blue box, but nobody could hear the peace. Some farmer woke up that next morning with some strange fruits hanging from his trees. You see, back in those days in the dirty, dirty South, we were tried and convicted with no proof. Our judge was an oak tree with a noose or gavel. Our jury had a tail and focus. They tell us to forget about the way your people suffer. They tell us to stop living in the past. But they have civil war reenactments every other month, and they worship the rebel flag. Freedom of speech, but watch what you say. It's the way it always been for us in this land. They murdered and destroyed the Black Panther Party. They knew nothing about the Ku Klux Klan. They want us to have a decent education and they move the street of our minds. They want us to play in professional sport because they knew our women was on the side. 1965, we got the right to vote, but y'all look at all that Florida records. Yeah, go ahead and vote all you want. Don't mean they gonna count them suckers. Now, I know there's a woman drug. Look how this thing failed. 70% of drug consumption is white folk. 8% of drug cases, blacks go to jail. They round up black folk up by the 1,000 every day. They throw on our asses and say, instead of yapping like they're trying to keep drugs out the country, they ain't keep them out the goddamn jail. They ain't gonna never go to the real root of the problem. Listen, they'll never go to the roots of the problem. The rich folk do their business. They just ride around our neighborhood, picking up young black men, breaking off the stems and the leaves. See, marijuana trees and the coca leaves coming in strong and faster every day. Meanwhile, they're destroying our communities with the surprise. It's always been an American way. They purposely target black neighborhood. That's where they know it's going to get sold. People busted and disgusted. It's our own disgusted. Try not to be beggars on what rocks are going. Whether you use or daily, you can't get wrong in that game. It's on my soul, my pockets can't afford. Got us going to jail, killing each other, acting like kids and acting like hoes. I ain't trying to preach a lecture to nobody. This is my life, I was a part of that scandal. But every man must decide to put any drug in his body, his mind, then we not condemn. So we gotta start getting together, our black people. Our crisis is at hand. While they get richer and living longer, we die younger and poorer in this land. These rap videos and picture shows teach our kids all about sex, money, and bling bling. We trying to raise poor kids with some diamonds and morality in the world that revolves around material things. All our young men brought up in all kinds of names. My young ladies know balls and fancy cars. Children eventually get pregnant, become a single mom, and still eventually they're dead behind bars. All we know is a million of us in jail right now, mostly on weed and coke. For us, that's a million of our kids without their daddy. For them, that's a million niggas that can't vote. And that's a million baby mamas working long, hard hours by herself, trying to take care of the kids and survive. With no father there to give them parental control and direction, so many young cats run around like they got in their lives. So with a lynch tactic. They used to control us as slaves. You break up our family, they could make it strong. Back in the day, they could just sell off a few slaves. Now they use dope, you can just go around. Sometimes I sit back and I think about our ancestors. They feel happy, sad, or betrayed. They probably turn over their graves by the way we behave. Take all this for granted and say, fuck that day. I know it ain't never been easy for us. We gotta make it better some ways so let's survive. But we can't sit back and wait. For government to solve problems is never too great. You gotta do what I said. You gotta do it right now.
That was Secretary from Montgomery. At this time, I just want to take an opportunity to thank our sponsors once again, the Plaza Abolitionists Center, Abolish Slavery National Network, Be Frank for Justice, Texas Advocates for Justice, and also the Young and the Politics. Now I'm going to call up Max Parkins, who has some exciting news as we get ready to close out, and I want to thank everybody again for sticking with us through this session.
Amen. I see some friendly faces in the house over here today, so thank you so much for showing up, and also to our friends in the media for being a part of this today. What I want to do is let you know what's going on right now. As I have mentioned before, the Abolish Slavery National Network has been instrumental in removing the exception clause from 7 states now. This is last election period. It was Utah and Nebraska, and prior to that, it was Colorado. And we have 9 other states that are already have their legislation set to 21 and 22. But just a couple of days ago, Senator Murphy out of Oregon, as well as Senator Clay, submitted a joint resolution from the House and the Senate that will repeal and replace the 13th Amendment, effectively turning into the 28th Amendment without any exception to slavery. The only thing that we'll need to do on that at this point is to get 3/4 of the legislators in the country on board for a congressional convention where we can make that happen and end slavery in America for the first time in its history. So big shout out to Senator Montgomery and Clay. This is not a done deal by any stretch of me. So we have got to continue to support. Please go to abolishslavery.us. Sign up as a supporter or as a group so you can lend your hand and do your part. Once again, I'm Max Parkins. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, all our viewers online at the Park Up the Abolitionist Center, my co-host, Savannah Eldridge, and our wonderful spoken word artist, Honey Bear and Tribal Rain, who participated in today's event. With that, we are going to shut it down. And you have seen us, the last of us here now, but you certainly have not seen the last of us. We are going to keep this fight going, and we're going to get it done and end slavery in America. Peace. Yeah. From our lips to God's ears.